welcome to Reasons to Roots. My name's Lauren, and today I have a fun video planned. So every year my family goes to Teach Them Diligently in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So this year I'm doing something that I have wanted to do for a number of years, and that is take you along with me, vlog style type. My daughter's going to help me remind me the video and that kind of thing. So we are excited. We leave in the morning. So today is Tuesday. The event starts on Thursday. So we usually leave the day before because it's about a 5-hour drive for us to make it there. So I wanted tonight to kind of address some things that I wish I would have known my first time going to a homeschool conference. So my first thing is familiarize yourself with the grounds. So wherever the location is, they usually have a map. Familiarize yourself with the map. Familiarize yourself with the schedule. Even though sometimes the schedule fluctuates, at least you have a rough idea of what events or speakers you want to see, and you can kind of plan out your days that way. So the first time I went, the Teach Them Diligently, it was in Nashville, and it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it, but there was one thing that I remember being so overwhelmed. For one, I tried to go to all the sessions that had like popular teachers, and that is, I think a lot of people do that. They just choose the sessions based on the speaker. And ever since, I've kind of gotten a routine, I choose based on subjects now versus speakers, because I feel like there are some wonderful speakers out there that we just aren't as familiar with, and that they might be able to give us some encouragement where we really need it. So that's one tip I would suggest when you're looking at the schedule. Don't just look at the names of the speakers, look at what they're actually going to be teaching, and that way you can really apply it to an area you're struggling in, or maybe you just need some encouragement, or you have questions about something, then you can just find those answers there. So familiarize yourself with the schedule. Go ahead and pick you out one or two from every hour. That way you have a rough idea of how your weekend is going to look. Okay, so my next thing is to schedule your own breaks. So this is something that I did after the first year, is that when I'm going through the schedule here, there's always at least one hour that there's not really anything that interests me. Go ahead and schedule that break out. Maybe you need to go shopping during that break to the exhibit hall, or maybe you need to get your lunch then, or just take a break with your kids. Whatever it is you need to do, I would go ahead and schedule your own break, okay? My main thing with Teach Them Diligently is two things. Is that you need to make sure, if you can, to check in early, because every year I get there, I Teach Them Diligently the day of the event, and the line is literally like out the doors, and it takes like an hour to get checked in or more. And so they do offer early check-in on Wednesday nights, and if you can't be there on Wednesday nights, then I suggest you get up early and head to the conference center and get your spot in line, because that can kind of be stressful, and it just sets the tone for the day and the whole event, and you feel like you're behind, or at least I do if I'm in that situation, feel like I'm missing out, or it can just make unnecessary stress. So just plan your check-in times to be early and to be there early if you can. My second thing is that I wish someone would have pulled me aside and warned me about was the exhibit hall. Now, a lot of people, that's their favorite thing from a conference, is the exhibit hall. And my first year, I would have said that was probably my favorite. I probably went to 5 or 6 sessions in 3 days. The rest of the time was in the exhibit hall with my friend. And looking back, I was so overwhelmed, and I made decisions that I normally would not have made. Usually I research curriculum very thoroughly. I remember going into Teach Them Diligently with a plan. I had a plan, I had a list, but then you see it all. It's like all just looking at you and like screaming your name, and you want to try this and you want to try that, and maybe this would work and maybe this would work. And then the longer you're there, the more you see and the more you pull, like, oh, well, that might work. And you're overspent, both emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially a lot of times, because we just get into this atmosphere that is in the exhibit hall, and it can be very overwhelming. And so I do encourage people to take your time in the exhibit hall, know exactly what you need, and be firm with yourself if you need to be about some things, because it is fun. It is so much fun, but I had so much buyer's remorse from that first year that I purchased a lot of things from Teach Them Diligently, things that I never used or things I knew might not work. I just wanted to try them, and that kind of thing. So I feel like the exhibit hall needs to come with a warning label, because it can be very, very overstimulating. But it is a great time to compare curriculum. So that's my tip. If you are looking at something specific, maybe compare it with some other things. Don't be hasty in your decisions. Maybe think about it, mull over it while you're there, and then, go by and make your purchases. So that's my main things that I would want to know if I was going into Teach Them Diligently, is beware the exhibit hall, check in early, highlight your list. Teach Them Diligently actually has an app, and you can go in the app and make your schedule. And that's really neat, but I also like to have one printed. A lot of times I'm asked, can you take your children in? Yes, you absolutely. My children have always went with me into the Teach Them Diligently sessions, and they have enjoyed those. And even my youngest goes into some, but my aunt goes with us, who is as a grandmother to my children, so she kind of helps. So it's fun if you can go and you have someone to kind of help you with your children, but I know that's not always an option. But yes, children are absolutely welcome at Teach Them Diligently, and I feel like it has set a very great groundwork and mind frame for my children of why we homeschool. Because a lot of times you can tell them over and over maybe, but just hearing it from the speakers and the convictions that come from the microphones at Teach Them Diligently really, I think, has cemented in my children the need and the importance of homeschooling. So that's just a few tips before we head out in the morning. I'll see you in the morning. So as I am packing up everything, I thought it might be helpful to show you exactly what I bring for my younger children to keep them busy during the sessions, because I try not to do a whole lot of electronics anyway, but they're, sometimes I let them play like PBS Kids or something like that for a little bit, but we also have, each child has their own bag, and I kind of let them bring whatever they want. But for my youngest, I have some Legos just in a Ziploc bag, crayons with one of these composition journals. He really likes to use these, so I just have him a blank one to use. Then I have the plus blocks. I have some tic-tac-toe. I have Play-Doh, and I have one of these drawing boards. So just some things that are quiet. My daughter will carry her crochet and drawing material, that kind of thing. As far as things for myself, I bring my notebook. So I have a notebook that my oldest son made me a few years ago. He does leather work, and so I carry this, and it has a pocket in it that I can put like insert things in, water bottles. But I have this big backpack that I keep pretty empty, with my wallet and maybe just some necessities, and then it has room for anything I need to buy at the exhibit hall. I can fit into my backpack. So if you plan to do some shopping, it just depends on how much shopping you're planning to do. Most of what I buy will fit in a backpack. If you're not, I see people with wagons. Maybe, you can break it up by day if you need to and carry out some. I did have teenage boys go with me at one point in time, so that was helpful because they could carry a lot of things, but we don't have them going with us this year. But I don't plan on buying a whole lot from the exhibit hall because we start school next Monday. So we will come home from the conference and jump right back into our school year because we have been off almost 2 months. And I will say that every child or everyone who has a bag brings some water. Now, a water bottle, and I have had snacks in the past. I feel like they're really cracking down this year on the food policies at the LeConte Center. So, I think I'll still be able to carry my water bottle and a few snacks in. I know you can't bring like a whole meal in or a whole cooler in, but as far as the water bottle, I'm going to try to get my water bottle and snacks in. I don't like breaking rules because I want to respect the nunneries because they've worked hard to have this event, and I want to honor them by following the rules. But in the past, that's what I've done, is carry my water bottle and some snacks. And then they have I wouldn't even call it, they don't have much options there in my opinion. They have snacky type carts to buy things from, and they have coffee. So usually we just leave and eat somewhere around the event center and come back. You could pack your lunch and eat outside. We've done that too, and that works well. So I am going to have water bottles and snacks too, and if I see that that's not allowed, then we'll think of something else. So it is the next morning and we are packing up. I'm about to load the car up and we are going to be on our way. So it took us about 5.5 hours to get to Pigeon Forge. Once we got there, we were able to check into our hotel early, which was nice. We got checked in, got settled in. We went back and went swimming for a little bit. Then we went and checked in early at Teach Them Diligently, which would save a lot of time for the next morning. So we didn't have to rush there and get checked in and wait in line. So I'm thankful they have the early check-in. So we did that. And then we went and ate supper at downtown Flavortown, played some arcade games. We drove down downtown Gatlinburg, even though it was raining. We just had to, go in, and usually we walk downtown, but we just drove it today since it was raining. And then we went back and just rested to prepare ourselves for the next day. I studied my Bible a little bit. I looked over the schedule for the next day, as well as looked over the vendor hall list of exactly the ones that I wanted to go to, and I marked them on the vendor map. So that was very helpful this year, having the outline of the vendor map and being able to mark exactly where you want to go. The next morning, we actually got up and went to the Frizzle Chicken, which is one of our kids' favorite places to go eat. The chickens sing, and they're named after famous singers and actors, and it's neat. So we got there a little early, and we were walking around and checked out Nature Plus Workshop, and then we headed to our first session. So for the first half of the day, my aunt stayed with my son at the hotel, and they swam. We actually went to the Future Marriage University workshop, which was really good. And then we went to 5 Lies Your Homeschooler Would Believe. And then we took a break and we went snow tubing for a little while. And then we all came back to the conference and finished out the day strong with, I think, 3 or 4 more sessions after that. We had to get a coffee break, of course, and we really enjoyed all the sessions Thursday. I would say my favorite from Thursday was the keynote speaker, who was an astronaut who got stuck in outer space, and his whole talk was very encouraging and very enlightening. So we enjoyed hearing Butch Wilmore. After a full day, we headed to Huck Finn's to grab us
some good food after a very long day, and it was one of our favorites. We love going to Huck Finn's. The next morning, we got up early to see Ken Ham and hear him speak, and of course, that was such a blessing. We really enjoyed it. The worship is always wonderful there as well, and it's just so nice to be in the same room with so many people who are like-minded, worshiping the Lord. So after the keynote speaker, we had 2 more sessions, and then we took a lunch and shopping break where we got all our goodies from the vendor hall and took some time to stroll around there. We got some lunch from one of the vendors there in the LeConte Center, and we just ate it outside. It was such a nice day, beautiful there on the creek. So it is about 3 o'clock on Friday, and we are about to head out because we had prior engagements all weekend. So we're leaving about a day and a half early, but we have had so much fun. So this is all my goodies that I purchased at the Teach Them Diligently exhibit hall. So here is what I purchased at Teach Them Diligently. I have a little bit of a cold, but this is the things I got from Nature's Workshop. So I had planned on buying a few bird things because that's going to be our nature study focus. So I got the James Audubon chart of birds to hang up. I also got the Dr. Noggin bird game for my son. And then for my daughter, I purchased the watercolor fruit workbook by with the free painting class that they offer through these workbooks. I've seen these advertised a lot, so I think she'll like that. This will be her first day of school gift, along with a new set of watercolors in the forest colors. And then I also purchased some beeswax crayons. I wanted to get these for our first 5 in a row unit anyway. I had thought about it and they had them, so I bought those for my son's first day of school gift, along with his Professor Noggin bird game. Now, some other things, I kind of changed up what exactly I wanted to buy for my son to continue with his language arts and his reading. And the more I looked at Rod and Staff too, I thought it wasn't going to do exactly what I needed. And this Master Books Language Lessons for Living Education, I think will be good for him. It'll give just enough reading reinforcement on top of the readers that we're already reading. And this has a little more grammar practice, and it has a lot of calendar work, of course some Bible reading. It has spelling, which I'm not going to do like a list, but we're just going to practice spelling these words along with his dictation. So we're just going to see how this goes. I think this kind of thing will be good for him to keep him moving forward without too heavy of a phonics, because I don't want to weight him down to where he doesn't want to read and reading becomes cumbersome for him like it used to be. Right now he's enjoying reading, so we're kind of just jumping from that. And then I'm going to use this alongside Queen language lessons because they are so very light. A lot of them are just orally, and these are just enough practice for handwriting I think he'll need, as well as a little bit of reading and phonics practice. So we're going to see how it works. I've never used it before, and but I just kept, after praying about it, I just kept being pulled back to this. So that's what we're going to do, see how that works. I also went to a session on a living science notebook that I really enjoyed, and Brighter Ideas Press has just released this new science curriculum by Carrie Iverson. And it's the mystery of science, like the mystery of history, but this is the mystery of science, written by a different lady. And my son loves science, and we have tons of living science books, but I was wanting something that was very apologetics based and biblically centered, that didn't have a whole lot of lessons, like the lessons weren't very long.
And so these lessons are very short. It comes with a notebooking page or like a science lab. And so we might not do this all the time. I bought this more to fill in, to go with all our living books and our 5 in a row stuff that we do. Not so much going through it week by week, but I do really enjoy this. I enjoyed this lady. So that'll be used just however I see fit. With his science, I think he'll like going a little deeper, because I feel like he's very science minded. So a little depth I think would help. From Simply Charlotte Mason, I bought the Art of Composition Year 2. I have a review of Year 1 on my channel. Last year we didn't finish Year 1 because my daughter was already doing everything that Year 1 taught. So I've looked through Year 2, and I think that will be a good fit for her for the upcoming year. And it has a little bit of grammar practice in it, but mostly it's about making your narrations into essays. And then I also bought For the Children's Sake for my daughter-in-law who's pregnant, and so I bought this for her because it was one of my favorite books. And then just a surprise that I bought were these Color and Truth scrolls. So they just roll out, and they have one for each book of the Bible. So Genesis, since it's so long, has 2. So I went ahead and bought this because we'll be starting in Genesis with my son and reading through the narrative this school year. And for every chapter, they can write a summary. And there are like days of creation. There's main themes that you can fill out. The purpose of the book, that kind of thing. And so we'll hang these on our wall of our schoolroom when we're done. And if it goes well, then I'll keep using these, because I think this is a great way to like have them draw like a narration of that chapter, you know, in each bubble. So I'm taking a minute finally to sit down and do a little recap of our time at Teach Them Diligently. So I've had a little cold, trying to let that pass before I did this video, but so we were only there for Thursday and Friday till around, I think it was right after lunch we left. So I missed a day and a half, but in that day and a half that we were there, we went to 9 sessions. So it was pretty packed full. We really enjoyed it. To be honest, I feel like it was one of the best times I've had. I don't know if it was because I left before I got too overstimulated, or before I got too tired, or what, but I felt like it was very encouraging. It was just exactly what I needed, even though I didn't get the full weekend. So that's something to also consider. Maybe you can't get the full weekend. It's okay. You could still just go for a day or 2 and still be blessed through it. So from those 9 sessions, on Thursday I went to 6 sessions on Thursday. So Thursday was a full day. The only session I did not go to was one that I had marked by Heidi St. John. So I didn't get to see Heidi St. John, which I usually always try to see her, but it just didn't work out this time. So I think I only missed 1 session Thursday. So the first session I went to was 6 dating questions, or 6 questions your child should answer before they start dating. And that was put on by the Future Marriage University. And it was very, very good. So I have my 3rd teenager now. And even though we've already been through this before, even though she's my 3rd, she's my first girl. And you know, you want some clarity, like, because I didn't do it exactly right with my boys. And there were some things I want to change about that. And so this one really helped me. They emphasize like friends first dating. Like, you have to be friends first before you start dating. You have to know this person. You just don't start dating anyone who asks you. You become friends first. And I really like that. And he really pushed that. For homeschoolers, we tend to polarize. We tend to go to one extreme or the other of, oh, let's date. We can date anyone, or we can date no one. Like, we can't even be around the opposite sex. And he was pointed out how that can create a fear of the opposite sex. And so when they graduate, they're afraid, or they go from never being able to be around the opposite sex to married. And how there needs to be a good in between there. And so that was helpful. And something that he mentioned that I have seen just in my own experience but didn't know how to articulate it is that children who honor you as parents consistently are mature enough to date. And I believe that's true because I have seen that in my own children. So children who are consistently honorable, trustworthy, and at a certain age, of course, are ready to date. And if they're not, if they can't handle the authority of a parent, then that they need to grow up some more before they start dating. So that was a good one. The next one we went to was 5 Lies Your Kids Will Believe. And this is from the lady, I can never say her name right, but the lady who has published Foundation Worldview. And it was very good, very informative. It was just basic apologetic stuff though, but it was good. And something that she really brought in was that a lie that our children will believe, that the one that stuck to me the most was a person's value comes from their abilities. So I think we do that in our flesh. It's so natural for us to do that. We want to say that our ability comes from something we've earned or something we've done or from our worth. And that's just something we have to constantly be on guard against. So that was one that I want to really watch in my home. The next one was building independent learners. And it just really, I went there, for my son to try to help him be more independent. And that was my pull to that session. And what stuck with me about that was that she said teaching independence is a form of discipleship. And I had never thought of that before, and that really stuck with me because it is. It's teaching them to live their life for Christ independently. The next one was raising daughters with godly confidence. Now, I'll be honest, this one was my least favorite of all my sessions. My daughter actually looked at me, I'm just gonna be honest, and it was like, let's go. Because, and this is why, because I have tried to train her to see self-help in a man-centered gospel wherever she can, and it turned into a very self-help type of, I don't know, she had some great points, and I'm sure a lot of people were blessed by it. It just was not our cup of tea very much. So there were some good points, and she did contrast and compare godly confidence with worldly confidence, and I felt like that was good. But then it just felt very self-helpy, and so there was that. So that was my least favorite. But of course, there is something good to pull from every one of them. Oh, you okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. The next one was pictures or it didn't happen, how to create a lab journal. And this one was actually Carrie Iverson, the creator of the Mystery of Science that I purchased the curriculum from. She really didn't say anything new or anything great, profound, but I really enjoyed her session. I really enjoyed her. So that's the thing about going to some people's sessions that you're not familiar with, that you learn and you appreciate new people. And so I really enjoyed her, and I enjoyed talking to her at her booth. So I'll just read you a list of my notes from, if I can find them. So for a list of things that she said could go in a science journal, she showed pictures and some examples, and her curriculum actually has a lab journal. But one thing I really liked about her was she never self-promoted. So too much self-promotion for me turns me off. Yeah, you can tell me you wrote a book, that's fine. Do not push it down my throat. And so you get that a lot with a lot of people, but with her, she never mentioned it until she had a friend who sat in the back, and it was the author of Mystery of History. I just, had seen her around so much that I was able to know. It was such a small room. No, that was her. And she asked the question about her own, about the curriculum and about the lab journal. And she answered that, but that's all she said about it. And she never promoted herself. And I just felt a genuine humility in her, and I appreciate that. So here are some things she said could go in a science journal: vocabulary, scripture, coloring pages, research, experiments, data, charts, food webs, life cycles, etc. Questions throughout the day that you have. Observations, failures, examples, and all of this should lead to worship. And she suggested doing one sketch, one sketch a week. And so after that one, we went straight to the keynote session, which was Butch Wilmore. And he was the astronaut who got stuck in space. I guess it was a couple of years ago now. And he was very good. Very, very good. He talked a lot about natural and general revelation and how, space just declares the glory of God, basically. And I really enjoyed his session. I didn't take a lot of notes because it was like drinking from a water faucet. Him and Ken Ham, him and Ken Ham both, but they were phenomenal. So I was so glad we stuck out the rest of the day and watched Butch Wilmore. We went home after that. Back to the hotel. Well, actually, we had to go eat first, and then we went back to the hotel. So we did not stay for the grand opening at the exhibit hall. Okay. So Friday morning kicked off bright and early at 9 that morning, and it was Ken Ham. Again, drinking from a water faucet, didn't get a lot of notes, but was phenomenal. And he talked about the building block of society basically being the family and how that is corrupted, and what, some practical steps. He gave practical steps for how we could overcome the fall, so reverse the curse basically. And for a woman, he talked about how our desire will be because of the curse, is to rule over our husbands. And that was very practical, I thought, and I thought he did a very good job in his keynote. So on Friday, I went to 3 sessions. Okay, just 3 sessions on Friday. Ken Ham, the keynote, and then I went to Raising God-Centered Kids in a Self-Centered World, and this was my favorite. It was my favorite. I don't even remember who the lady was. She wasn't like some dynamic speaker. She was reading her notes, but it was so much great information. I took 6 or 7 pages of notes for her. And basically, she was just gave you all kinds of practical tips about how to help your child be self-governed, or self-control in a world that tells them to give into themselves all the time. And and that was an area I felt like we needed to work on. I need to work on. Our family needs to work on. It was just so good. I'm thinking about going back and emailing her and asking her for her notes. Because I couldn't write fast enough. It was so great. So that was my favorite session, was the Raising God-Centered Kids in a Self-Centered World. And then the last session I went to was a wonderful one to end it, and it was Angie, I think it's Toplin. She has the Courageous Parenting podcast with her husband. And it was a mother-daughter relationship, talking about mother-daughter relationships based on Titus 2. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. And it wasn't even anything with my daughter. It was more just the season of life I'm in. We've had a very difficult year. The past year has been very difficult. A lot of things have happened that has been difficult. And you start, Satan starts throwing questions of, are you doing, just questioning your identity. Basically, when things start falling apart like that, the main thing I got from her was stop wearing badges, like Homeschool Mom, as our identity, as who we are, because our identity isn't in being the perfect mom. And this goes back to something the Lord has been trying to teach me, that good children are not my reward. That's not my reward. Christ is my reward. Well-behaved, good, godly children are not my reward. Like, that's not what I get for being a good mom. They might still be rebellious even though I'm a good mom. They might make mistakes even though I'm a good mom. Even though I've done what I have felt called to do by the Lord, they may still not walk in the ways I've taught them. And He has still promised to be there, you know, and my identity is still in Him, regardless of what happens with my children. And I think a lot of times we put our identity in how our children turn out. And homeschooling is not a recipe for success. It is not a promise that your children are going to be perfect. So this was really good for me to hear. And I think she closed with this. She said, "Do you really believe the gospel?" And of course we would say yes. And then she said, "If so, then your failures don't matter." Because we tend to just camp on our failures so much. But if the gospel is true, then then our failures can be used for good. And then our failure, even our children's failures, are not the end of the story. So that was good. I needed to hear that. I actually cried during that session, and you know, it was just exactly what I needed to hear to close out. You know, I really wanted to hear Mickey Addison, because I had actually requested her back 2 years ago to speak, but it just didn't work out to where I could hear her. But I'm thinking about going back and listening to some of the recordings, because I know she was great too. But those were the 9 sessions that I went through, and I really enjoyed them. So I hope you've had a good time coming along with us as we went to teach them diligently, and I hope you're blessed by some of this content.